Welcome to the Coaching Call. I'm Dr. Summer Kassmel, dentist, practice owner, and leadership coach for dental practice owners who are tired of being the hardest working person in a practice that still can't run without them. In this podcast, we're going to talk about what actually builds a practice that you can step away from. The systems, the leadership, the team accountability, and honestly, the foundational inner work it takes to stop being the bottleneck and start being the real CEO. This isn't a business podcast about vanity metrics. It's about building a team that holds a standard when you're not in the room, producing more without grinding harder, and finally, leading in a way that feels just like you. So let's get into it. Hello, everybody. I want to ask you something. And, it's something that I feel like we don't necessarily really talk about. And that is when you walked into your practice this morning, doctors, leaders, what were you actually energetically broadcasting? Not what you were saying. What were you feeling? And what was just that energy like? Were you possibly anxious about the schedule or resentful about a conversation that you had been avoiding? Bracing for a team member maybe that you knew it was going to be difficult to work with that person today. Or maybe you were pretending to just be fine while something was really just kind of sitting heavy on your chest. I can say firsthand, our team is not responding to what we say. They're responding to the energy that we give off when we say it. I could have the most beautifully written core values just printed on the wall. I could have standards that were so well documented. I could have a morning huddle that was scripted just perfect. But if the energy that I would walk into the practice with didn't match necessarily any of that, none of it would land. None of it felt truly authentic and genuine. Because human beings, they're really just kind of reading energy long before they're really listening to the words. So whatever I was feeling, my team felt it too, and they responded to it, not the actual words that I would use. And that could even be me staying silent or saying nothing. But they could sense that energy or tenseness, or maybe it was frustration. That's what this episode is about. Well, welcome back. Welcome back to the Coaching Call. I'm Dr. Summer Kassmel, and in the last episode, I told you that everything that we do here at Ladder 5, it starts in the same place. It starts with you, doctor, leaders of the practice. It starts with how we think. It starts with our mindset and how well do we lead ourselves first. This mindset and the somatic work that sits underneath, it's everything underneath foundationally. So today we're going to be getting to the first piece of that. And I want to really kind of start and ground this conversation in something we have to define before really anything else will make sense. And that's, what does success even really mean? I think often success in dentistry has been defined by, collections, production, square footage, number of ops, number of location, number of team members. And listen, those things, of course, they matter. We absolutely care about measuring and tracking metrics that do matter. But if we build all of that and we don't feel joy while doing it, or we do not have that sense of purpose or fulfillment, or even worse, our relationships, they're strained or they're disconnected, or God forbid our body, it's breaking down because of it. And you don't end up enjoying that life that you worked so hard to create. Well, then what I can say is, regardless of those numbers, did we really succeed? I know firsthand that I was very capable of just building a more impressive trap, really. Because real success is feeling joy and freedom and fulfillment in my practice, in my life, in my relationships. Everything else is a metric in the service of attaining those, not the other way around. And here's what I found in just decades of practice ownership and over 15 years of personal coaching, somatic work, and mindset development. That kind of success, it actually doesn't start with a system, a hire, or just the right strategy. It actually started in my mind. And there really is just this art and awareness that's needed around that success of feeling joy, purpose, and fulfillment. It all starts with how we perceive what's happening around us. Because crazy enough, our perceived reality is being broadcasted to every team member every single minute that we're in the office, whether we realize it or not. So if we want to lead differently, we have to start by understanding what's really running the show underneath. And that brings us to the understanding of where it starts. And that's really just our own triggers. And I think, like like many other buzzwords that I'm hearing right now, triggers, the word triggers can end up just being overused and sometimes I find even weaponized. It's not something we can use as an excuse. Rather, it's something to become aware of and understand its effects on our own mindset and thus on our decisions. When something or someone is triggering us, what's really happening, I hate to say it, it's not about that other person or that situation. It's really like an old wound just getting pressed on, which then triggers often a story, a narrative, which then that story will hijack our emotions. And then we may choose to react from that triggered or heightened emotional place. But if we stop long enough to notice, we'll find we can feel it in our bodies, whether it's our chest or our neck or even the pit of our stomach. That's what somatic actually means, is the body. And it's the single most important reframe that I can offer today. And I know it sounds so simple, maybe even like a throwaway concept, but I promise it's the foundation of being able to lead ourselves really well first. And we have to know ourselves, our triggers, our patterns before we can ever lead other people well. So, when my front office person would give me a look in the morning huddle, I could feel it in my whole body. I would tighten, my jaw would want to clench, heat could rise in my chest. That reaction, it wasn't about her. It was about whatever older, deeper thing that look touched inside of me. Maybe, I don't know, right? If it was a parent who I once had that look from, or a previous team member who was undermining me, years ago. But it was a version of ourselves that maybe was afraid of being judged or being unseen. It's something that just has a past in it. It's not about her. She was just responding or reacting from her own triggers, including whatever else happened that morning. Or how about this? How about when a patient complains, right, about a treatment plan or whatever, and we can spiral into defensiveness, justification, story building, replaying it for the rest of the day? That's actually not about the patient. Once again, that's about some old wound that their reaction merely pushed on. And I remember learning this concept from incredible mentors. And I was kind of upset. And I even remember being like, come on, isn't it sometimes that other person is just a real turd? Aren't they just kind of a jerk? And my mentors would always remind me, some of that person has built safety mechanisms and strategies in life just like you have. And just like you, some of those strategies are successful and others, they're just not as helpful. But instead of focusing on that other person, focus on yourself. Why do I feel frustrated? Where do I feel it in my body? Where's this coming from? And I'll notice it, give it space to pass, address what that frustration is about, and then I can lead from there. Often I realized for myself, the times I would get the most triggered, it was really for me a wound around not being understood, not being enough, or trying my hardest, only to feel what I thought was unappreciated. Once again, it was never, ever about the other person. It was just about them pushing on something that would have me want to react with my old strategies. And I thought it would keep me safe, right? So when an associate doctor maybe would come in and ask a question in a tone you just don't like, And I get it, right? You want to immediately go cold, get annoyed, shut down, write them off in your head. Whatever question that was never about what they asked or even how they asked it. It's really just an old wound, including wounds of sometimes it can be, oh, see, I knew nothing would work out. Or if I'm really honest, I'm scared about the uncertainty of, is that doctor wanting to leave? Am I going to have to now just do this all by myself? So we will end up reacting from that triggered emotional place, and it's almost involuntary. It really is. It's like a habit that we think by creating that story of that narrative, it's going to somehow keep us safe. And when I say keeps us safe, what I mean is not vulnerable. We're not vulnerable. We don't have to be in conflict. Whatever's going to create, we think, the least negative emotions, there could be. And our reactions tend to fall into usually the same handful of patterns. Some of us, we can get just really defensive, and then we make up a story about, what the other person meant, or something about who they are. Or we can get angry, or sometimes we can shut down. I know I could move to, I'll just appease, I'll smooth it over. We'll abandon ourselves just to keep the peace. But then we find we're really just harboring some inner resentment. I've also seen where we can overfunction and just try to control everything, control the entire situation. Just put it in my hands. I'll control everything. If we just have things controlled, then we'll feel safe, right? But here's the thing, we're never ever going to be able to control everything, nor should we. The goal is instead just gaining control of what we can and really acquiring that sense of confidence that we can trust ourselves to figure things out. We can become resilient. We can learn from obstacles. And we know that regardless of what other people do or they don't do, we're solid. We're okay. That the person, if they will have their triggers, but we've learned our own patterns. So we can be aware. And here's the kicker. The stories that sometimes we end up making up in those triggered moments, I promise you, and I can tell you firsthand from life experience, those stories are almost always inaccurate. There is almost always missing information. It doesn't feel like it, but it's true. And we can assign so much meaning and intention and even almost character to other people based on what got us triggered. And then here's the funny thing, we're the ones suffering inside because of those stories we created. We can end up carrying them home to our families. We can replay them over and over. We can let them shape how we treat people for days or weeks afterwards. And here's the thing, leadership doesn't have to look like that. That's just leading from triggered reactions. And gosh, I have been there. It's not enjoyable and it's really exhausting. So let's talk about the next piece. And that's the attachment piece of triggers and stories. So I want to start just having you be aware of something. And I'm going to go so much deeper in later episodes on this. So really just consider this kind of the first doorway. Every single one of us, we have an attachment style, and it formed early on in our lives. I'm not going to get into it, but from caregivers, our environments, or just experiences through life, all of us have them. And in moments of when we're triggered, our attachment style becomes the system we use to, like I said, try to keep ourselves safe, not vulnerable, not in conflict for most of us, not, having to feel negative emotions. So for some of us, it's we shut down or we just go completely quiet and numb. Some of us can get loud and just try to control more things. For some people, it's appeasing and people pleasing. For some of us, it's just oscillating between all of it, depending on the day. And here's what I want to make sure you hear, because I know I needed to hear this. None of this means any of us have character flaws. They're just nervous system strategies that got built a long time ago, and they help keep us safe. The work is never to shame ourselves for having them. The work is just to start noticing them. Because once you can see your own pattern, you can choose differently in real time. But you cannot choose differently until you see it. So let's talk about how do we start seeing it then? And I learned this 5-step practice a long time ago, and it's really what I want to give you today. Now, here's what I will say. It sounds really simple, but after experiencing it and watching my own clients experience it, it's not easy. But if you take this into your practice this week, I promise you, it will start changing things faster than you can expect. So, number one, it's become aware of what is going on in your energy, in your emotions. And if you notice your body tensing or anxious or heated, just notice it. Pause, observe, and say what patterns are showing up. What kind of people, comments, situations, they keep landing that way. They keep having it. I feel it in my chest every time. Where in your body do you notice it? What kind of energy do you end up then bringing into the practice? Whether it be on hard days, or what does that look like versus the easy ones without the triggers? Name what you can notice you're feeling if you can, whether you write it down, jot it in your notes, whatever. It's really just only for you to see and start beginning to track your patterns, your triggers. Be honest with yourself. It's okay. Is it frustration? Is it resentment? Is it fear? Is it guilt, shame, inadequacy, needing to prove something, needing to feel appreciated, needing to have significance? It's okay. I have felt all of them, but naming them as accurately will end up being a huge shift because most of us tend to walk around with really just kind of this giant cloud of dysregulated feelings that we really never stop to identify. And then what happens is because we never stop long enough to identify it, we wonder why we keep reacting and we're in these loops of acting the same way and often in ways that really aren't effective as a leader. Awareness is always the first step, always. And I know personally to fight this and kind of be like, oh, this is so silly, so woo woo. But I know when I did the work, I realized I was often triggered and just trying to stuff down emotions until really they'd come out sideways in ways I just didn't even think could happen. And I recognized I wasn't able to necessarily hide them anymore. People could see them, people could feel that energy. So, number two, next, when you feel that trigger hit, before immediately reacting, um, just take a moment, before you make any decisions or say something, just pause. And even if you need to say it out loud, just kind of quickly to yourself, okay, I'm feeling it. I'm feeling triggered right now. I know I need to just take a deep breath. And here's the funny thing is just that sentence, it moves you from pure reaction into instead just observation. You're not that trigger anymore. You're the one noticing that trigger. And that's a completely different place to lead from. In that pause and in that deep breath, it's magic. You can start self-regulating. Then number three, you feel it, you notice it, you name it, and then we have to figure out how do we need to kind of discharge that initial emotion or energy. Because I've learned a trigger just lives in your nervous system. It's not really a conscious thought. It's just energy that's in our body. And until you give that energy someplace to go, it just keeps kind of running the show. It's that low level, just humming or buzzing or redlining. So I was taught just to discharge that initial emotion. And sometimes it can be just a quick 2 or 3 minute walk. Sometimes it's just step outside and take breaths in the fresh air and look at the sun. Um, Sometimes I know for me, it was shut the door and let myself be really angry. Or even sometimes, guys, I'll be honest, I needed to just cry a little bit. But something that you can be able to discharge that energy. And I was even taught if you're feeling really angry, it's okay. Push against a wall for 30 seconds, shake your hands out, whatever you need to do, but continue to do it until you can take 10 slow, deep breaths with longer exhales than inhales and do something physical that just signals to that nervous system that the threat, it's over. That trigger, it's over. You're totally safe and you can really kind of come back into your body. That's the somatic work of this practice. And I'll say it again, hard to believe, but it's not really woo woo at all. It really is biology because you cannot think your way out of that dysregulated nervous system. You have to notice, pause, breathe, and allow it to move through you. And then notice, okay, I'm coming back to myself. The crazy thing about triggers is they just take us out of our bodies. We get all caught up in our heads and overthinking, ruminating, building cases, overfunctioning, over-explaining. So then, step 4 is just to notice when you have returned. You've returned to that baseline. Notice what it feels like in your body. Notice when you can tell, okay, my jaw, it's unclenched. For me, it's my shoulders have dropped and my chest has stopped feeling like it was racing. When the blood isn't pounding in your head anymore. I notice for some people, they can get really red in their faces or necks. And when the story has started to calm down, when they've come back to themselves, they can notice it starts to diminish. When the story in your head quiets down, you can take those deep breaths, start to notice that experience because the more you recognize it, the faster you're going to be able to get there the next time. And then step 5, once you're regulated, I highly advise asking yourself these 2 questions. Does whatever this is require some sort of response in that very moment? Usually it does not. We just think it does. The majority of time we can actually state, I want to give this the attention it deserves, and I will get back to you by Thursday morning or whatever date makes sense. Guys, don't overlook this. This is where leadership can truly get more effective. Finding a neutral, thought through response, not a heightened reaction that we might just end up regretting later. And I will say, I have more things that I regret saying and doing that I wish for none of you. And then the second question is, can I see the situation objectively now? Or if I'm really honest, do I still feel charged up about it? Is there still a bunch of story with it? Because if we're charged, the answer is not push through and just go have the conversation. The answer is really to just slow down and keep processing. Wait, maybe sleep on it, talk it through with a coach or a mentor, a trusted person who is not inside the situation. Definitely come back to it when you can see things more clearly. If you find a response does need to happen quickly, then just, if you can, give yourself long enough to pause, to breathe. And if you can, don't respond from the triggered emotion that you may be having. You will respond that way from a completely different place than you would have just 5 minutes ago when it happened. You'll respond more from the true prefrontal cortex rather than your activated nervous system. You'll respond as a leader instead of really that wound. And if you're a team leader listening right now, here is why this matters so much for your practice. Your team, they're watching you all day long. Not consciously and not because they're out to get you, for sure. But they're just human beings whose nervous systems are naturally wired to read other people's nervous systems, especially the nervous system of the person who is leading or is in charge. So when you're regulated, they'll regulate. When you're dysregulated, they can often get dysregulated just as well. So when you walk into a practice and you're broadcasting calm and clarity and trust, the whole place will feel different. And when we can walk in broadcasting a sense of just fearfulness or resentment or preconceived stories or anxiety, no script in the world will fix what it is that they're picking up. The leadership work, guys, it's not to perform or just pretend that we're being calm. It's actually to ultimately, through this process, to be able to embody it, to learn to, over time and with practice, you can be that regulated calm. And that only happens by experiencing one trigger at a time. And I used to get so frustrated because we're never going to be just perfect. And we are always going to be triggered, regardless of our reaction or response. Here's the thing I would invite you to is never shame yourself or anyone else because guilt and shame, they just aren't great, consistent motivators on an ongoing basis. Some days you're going to feel great progress around this process, and other days you're going to feel more emotional. And the goal is just learning to be aware, one pause at a time, one 5-step practice at a time. And I promise, I've watched it happen in 3 months, 6 months, a year. You'll look back and you will have so many less stories and suffering in your mind. I know I tell my own leaders, if you can, go into every conversation as really just a totally empty vessel. Even if you have ideas of what happened or you think you know, go in, just assume benefit of the doubt and that there is likely something missing in information. And when the person on the other side of you, when you talk to them, they become activated, just see it for what it is. Know that we all have been activated. Allow them, to just give the information, receive the information, and give them a pause or a day to reflect before trying to solve anything. Trying to solve problems in a reacted state, it just usually never goes well. So being able just to say, hey, team member, I can see just how passionate you are about this subject. And that sounds to me like that's probably a part of the frustration is how much you care. So how about we take a day? Let's reflect on what would great really look like the next time in this situation. Let's both reflect on that. And then let's meet tomorrow. How does that sound? Give them permission to pause and go ahead and move themselves. First to self-reflection and then just awareness without being placating or condescending. Okay, so your coaching call action item. It's becoming aware for the week, just 1 week. Just start to notice your triggers. You don't have to fix anything yet. Just start to notice. You definitely don't need to have the most perfect response as well. You just need to start seeing where are the triggers, where are the patterns. Where do you feel it in your body? When did it tighten? What was happening? Who was there? And the best one, what story did you start to want to build in your mind? Just notice it. Be the observer of it. What old wound maybe had been pressed on? If you're really honest in your little heart, was it I'm scared? Is it I'm not enough? Whatever it may be. Just notice. That is the whole assignment. So, if this episode has landed for you, I have a couple things for you. The first is a printable card with that 5-step practice that I just walked through. I know for me, it was nice to kind of just keep it, whether it be on your desk or someplace that you can see on the back of your door, just to remind myself. Anywhere that you can pull it out and use it in the moment or soon after. That link is in the show notes. The second is a masterclass that I have already done, and it's a deeper workbook on triggers and attachments that we put together for anyone who wants to go further into this work as doctors, as leaders. You can opt in for that in the show notes too, and we'll send you the recorded masterclass directly to your inbox along with the information. And then the third is for doctors and leaders who are ready to start building their leadership team. They have that foundation from that masterclass, and they want to learn how to grow themselves and grow the leaders in their practice. The link to our newest masterclass, it's in the show notes as well. We're going to teach how do you become the invisible layer of leadership, really the gravity of the practice. It's CE for the doctors and team members, and it's the same foundation every leader in our offices go through. And if today's episode, it resonated with you, the master classes are where I would suggest going next. And if you feel, led, I would so appreciate share this episode with doctors and leaders in your life who they're ready to lead from abundance instead of fear. The ones that they're trying to run their practices. And right now it's demanding them to overfunction just to keep them standing. My hope is that you're all singing because this conversation, it's for all of us. We're all in it together. I'm Dr. Summer Kassmel, and this is the Coaching Call. Let's get to work. Thanks so much for being here. If anything from today's episode sparks something for you, go to summerkassmel.com/podcast, type in bonus. That's where we keep all the tools and guides that go with the show. So you can take what you heard and actually put it into practice. See you next time.